Hello, this is the Mom 2 Centrist with another video. Today's video is going to be about a Biden and Trump debate, round 2, and who won. And if I had to choose between Biden and Trump, who I would declare the winner. And I was actually on Joe Biden's side for a lot of the debate, up until he said the China and oil comments that he had. And I was a little bit surprised when he did this. I'm not. I'll go over the China thing. I don't know if we can actually. I would have to look at more into the China and U.S. deals and do much more research than I have because I haven't done a whole lot, so I don't know exactly what's going on there. But I don't think dealing with China is really a great idea. I don't know if we can solidify anything with China, and if it is really possible, how long is this deal going to last and what entails it? I'm very concerned about his comments about China. I'm not saying this is an impossible task, but it's very strange that Biden is going for this thing pretty hard and he's very confident he can get this deal and have relationships with China. It's just like it seems very strange. I would have to really look into it and do my research to see what's going on and what entails this shit. But this seems very odd. I'm not exactly trustworthy of Biden on this, and I think a lot of people's concerns for it are justified, to say the least, because it's extremely delicate kind of a thing, and I understand why people are kind of hesitant of doing this. So him being coming up there and saying he can do it and it won't be too much of a problem has me very concerned. Now we will go to the he said he wanted to reduce oil, which is fine. I think that's a very good thing. Um, I was actually out for him until his next one. I think he said zero emissions. He really wanted to get rid of the oil industry. I'm not too sure if that's even possible. Even if we like reduce our independence on it, which I agree we need to, absolutely. But we're always going to need oil in some capacities with gas and just oil in general. I don't think there'll be a time anytime soon or 100% un, not dependent of oil, because solar energy for cars or like a hydrogen engine doesn't seem very promising on the horizon, and electric cars are pretty expensive as well. Sometimes they are not as efficient as they need to be, and there's some downsides with electric cars, and they're a very small market of cars now. So I get Trump's standpoint on this, like where he said, like, I think while he loves solar energy, it's just not quite there yet. It doesn't produce enough energy to have it, so it kind of we're dependent on just solar, because the solar's kind of expensive. It doesn't output as much energy as you usually put into it, and that it's not very efficient as just yet. Now, upcoming years, it might come insanely efficient where we can actually depend on a long for the long term. But as right now, there's a lot of things Trump said that I wholly agreed on, and going forward that we could, reduce a lot of these resources, but as right now, we don't really have much of a choice, and that's very interesting that Joe Biden kind of wants to, I guess, almost get rid of it, even if he reduces it by like 20 or 30%, which I think was viable and reasonable. What happens to the people who actually have jobs in this industry? And that's very concerning for a lot of states that really depend on it, and it might actually crash a few states' economic wealth and just absolutely crush some states into who knows where. Like, that's a very dangerous kind of a thing to say. I'm surprised he said that in the debate, and I'm not too sure exactly who he's going trying to impress with these kind of I guess hot takes. Um, not saying Donald Trump didn't have any. He definitely did, especially when it comes to the immigration thing. Some of the things he said were a little bit weird. I kind of agreed on him on the sense of we don't know about the 500 kids if they were actually separated from the parents. We don't know if they came over here by themselves. They don't know. I mean, maybe they do know. I don't fucking know what the U.S. government knows or doesn't know. They're not gonna fucking tell us willingly. That's for damn sure. But just for a hypothetical sakes, we kind of do know where some of these parents are, and they are separated by somehow. But there's going to be a percentage of these kids that may have people that brought them over here said they were their parents, but they actually weren't, or they came over by themselves. And there's a few other things I think along those lines that could put these kids on. Well, they may not have been separated from their parents at all, or they've been separated from the parents all along and they came in here anyways, as as he said, drug cartels. Well, there's probably no evidence either way who brought him over here. That's the problem I had with a lot of his statements. He said a lot of things that just can't be proven outright. At least to my knowledge, there might be some proof, and I'm just not aware of it. That's perfectly viable thing that I just don't know. There is some proof, and maybe there is some actual really hard evidence proof that these kids actually did come from the cartels and what they call coyotes and stuff like that. But overall, I'd say Trump probably was his best here. I was actually really impressed. He was taking notes, and he seemed way more prepared than his first appearance. I only gave Trump the victory on how he handled himself in the first one. I think Biden kind of had a pretty good edge on him on everything else, including answers. I didn't say, Trump did anything better than Biden with the Trump, answers anything. But I think Biden did. I'm not even want to like really change my position on who won on the first debate, but Biden definitely had an edge in a lot of other things over Trump in the first one. I only chose Trump just over how he handled this, kind of like how he handled himself, even though he was aggressive, even though he was kind of going on Biden a little bit hard, and the moderator kind of did a shitty job. This moderator was a lot better. This is my opinion. I thought she was a way better than the first one. It's way better to cut off Trump seemingly more than Biden. Biden had his fair shares of cutoffs too, but she asserted herself pretty good, pretty well actually, and cutting on both of them off. Like okay, you can or cutting off right out or just having okay very quickly respond to that and having about 10 or 20 seconds of response time in there. There was a little bit bias towards Trump again. I believe. I think it'd be very hard, if not impossible, to get unbiased towards Trump moderator. And I think it's kind of natural for there to be a bias against Trump because he is the current leader. So it's a little bit more is kind of, I guess, expected to him to accomplish than the person running against him. So I think it's a little bit okay to have harder questions for the actual current leader, and be just a little bit harsher, I guess, on to Trump. I think this is kind of a natural thing. I don't blame, or at least I don't blame people from being, a little bit harder on Trump with the questions and a little bit more hardball with him than the competition. Of course, there's going to be always a bias no matter who is going up. There might be a bias for Trump, there might be a bias for Biden, but I think she did probably the best job of everybody I've seen so far. Of course, that's not saying much in that regard, but she did. I think she did a really good job. Honestly, I think she was very fair, and she was a lot better than the previous ones by far. But I think after the China comments and the oil comments, and he kind of slipped on calling the Proud Boys, the poor boys. Um, yeah, something I picked up on. I was like, what? I know he has a lot of these like kind of slip ups. There's also like an audio clip of him saying he was in the Senate for 108 years. Like I don't mind an occasional slip up, but holy shit, Biden does this a lot. Like what the fuck is going on with this guy? He has me worried sometimes, and Trump doesn't usually do that. I haven't seen him do it at least, in the capacity of moral or Biden does. Like so overall, I think Trump had just a really better performance overall. He was actually really good in this debate, which is is pretty impressive considering how aggressive he was and kind of I guess dismissive in the previous debates. And I think he's more prepared than Biden, and he had a bit better questions. And I just seem to be agreeing in Trump's favor. Maybe I have a little bit bias towards agreeing with some of the, I guess, more right-handed issues because I agree more on the right side of things than the left side, even though my political compass is left, more left. I find it a little bit interesting. I don't know why that is. I think I've been noticing this a little bit lately. I've been agreeing, I guess, more so quote unquote on the right side than the left side. Now I do have left-sided, opinions, but it seems like I have more right-sided opinions. I think that's okay. I think I could still be like, yeah, I'm still a centrist in that kind of a sense, even though I do have more right-sided opinions, and I agree with more of the, I guess, quote-unquote right side of some of the stuff I've seen and heard. I still hold out that they might outnumber them, but it's not by like a huge scale or anything. So I would give this victory again to Trump, and not just by hairs this time. I think he actually came prepared. He had a lot more, I guess, more consistent answers and better answers than Biden. And what I think what really lost it for me was the China, the China thing. That was a big hot take for me. I was like, what the hell? Maybe there is something there, and I'm missing something and I'm wrong about the China deals. I could be 100% wrong, but that has me really concerned. And also the oil concerns. Also, that's really kind of a hot take too. Now I agree that we do need to reduce our oil dependency, but just to straight out cut it out, I don't know. Like, okay, let's see if it's possible. What is he going to do with all these people, the jobs in this industry? I'd like to see his plan and he didn't say, and so we don't fucking know. So that has me concerned as well. So unfortunately, I have to give this to Trump again. Just merely, I won't say just solely based on those two answers, because that's not what it is. Because I think Biden had him pretty much all the way up into that. It was, I think Biden had, not like a huge edge or advantage, but he still had a pretty good, answers wise in preparation time, and it didn't seem like Biden had too much preparation, or it was kind of like more prepared than Trump this time around. It's just Trump that had a lot other categories too, but that really kind of swayed me to pick Trump in this. Those two answers really did make it, I wouldn't say like a huge significant deal, but a pretty big one, and just for me at least. That's pretty much I have to say. Thank you for listening. Rate, comment, subscribe.